Marky Dragon, also known as Marcus Eikenberry in real life, and welcome to another episode of Let's Build an MMO. This is a roundtable where we are designing the game. That be you and me, all of us here, and having a mighty fine time doing it too. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about something called voxels. And so the subject came up because I have been playing the game 7 Days to Die. I really like it, and it uses voxels to build content, to build things. And so, I was wondering, okay, so obviously, 7 Days to Die is very Minecraft-y, except it's hardcore. And, is it, we wouldn't want our persistent world MMO to be like Minecraft and have the server reset from time to time and use up all the resources and all of that stuff. We're talking about a much bigger thing, much more persistent and long lasting. But is it possible to take some of those elements of using voxels in the game to where we could build our houses brick by brick, or we could, dig our dungeons one rock at a time, and or our mines, and also get our, then when we're changing it over into a dungeon, can we actually, build all of the stuff in there? And so the first thing I wanted to start with is that a good idea to even think about something like this for an MMO? What do you guys think?
I mean, the idea itself is really great because it makes the whole situation a bit easier to manage, all the building up a house or creating a dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen the video in the past where he was building a house, and it took a lot of time to build up the house. And I think with the voxel-based system, you could be very quick because, you just place your blocks, and after a couple of minutes, you have a house already, or at least the ground of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, we can't go out and take our in Minecraft is probably the example that most people know. If you guys haven't seen 7 Days to Die, you can check it out. It's like a hardcore zombie Minecraft with guns. And the advantage of it is that you can build all these things, but the disadvantage is that you can't just treat the whole world this way. And I don't know if it's actually possible to do both at the same time. To be where I can't tear down my neighbor's house, but I can my own. I've stumped everyone.
You mean that you have running several systems in one game?
Yeah, it's almost like that. It's. I guess it's like, okay, I've built this castle in Minecraft. This is mine. You can't touch it. And we can't have, the open lands, everybody going down, chopping down all the trees and terraforming the whole land and everything. I don't think it fits what we've been originally going for here. But the idea, especially of, if we're able to dig mines in our property and stuff, and then affect all the components of our property that way, then maybe.
That is sounding a bit restrictive if it is sort of just your own stuff. I mean, games with terraforming sort of appeal to me because they can actually affect the whole world. You can actually build a house in the side of a mountain by leveling off a part of the mountain to build it. So I mean, that sounds like you can build your own stuff, but when you actually sort of start building the rest of the world, does the rest of the world become yours if you start terraforming in different areas? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, part of the whole thing that we've set up so far is that you can't touch other people's land and public lands. You might be able to go down and chop down a tree, but then probably that tree grows back. You're not actually digging it up out of the ground.
Well, I wouldn't say that you couldn't go onto another person's land and do stuff. I think that's also a function of control as well. I mean, you can't build a house on somebody else's land, but that doesn't mean you can't sneak in and steal stuff from his house or chop down trees on his property, assuming that you're not caught by one of his guards.
Yeah. I just have to say that I'm really this whole idea of the risk in 7 Days to Die and the ability to build a house, build a fortress, this tower defense stuff, and to have just the thought of living in a region that where my house could be under siege, either by computer controlled monsters or by other players or whatever, and that stuff could be destroyed, but at the same time that I can, if I feel like it's necessary to build my walls 40 feet thick, that's what I do, and I can do that. We also have to think about if there is anything like that, about it being a persistent world. What happens if I go on vacation for a week? And if people are able to affect my stuff, do I come back to find that somebody's turned my property, leveled my house, and turned it into a farm?
Well,
Well,
we
I don't
previously
think-
discussed, it didn't seem that the housing is going to be cheap. So, coming
Well-
back and finding your house dead is probably not the best thing.
I agree. I'd be very disappointed if I came back and found that my stuff was gone.
Well, maybe not gone, it might be damaged, like public vandalism.
See, if you're smart, you wouldn't have to worry about your stuff being gone, but you might have to clean up the dead bodies.
And the graffiti that says "Ink was here." This is Ink's corner. Yeah. Well, it just really intrigues me, because I think that this idea of our first idea of building houses was that we could have like a blueprint for different wall panels and stuff like that, and maybe you would still need that blueprint for an idea like this, but that you could even go as far as having a blueprint for an entire house, and that way then you would go out and you'd collect all the materials that you needed to build that house, and whatever resources were required, and then you could say, here's my blueprint, here's my materials, now build it. I don't know what that mechanic would be, whether the house just instantly pops up, or it takes a week to build it, or and you have to hire minions, carpenters or whatever to do it for you, or you have to place it brick by brick. But I think that that if we could use some sort of interface like this, that we can build some really incredible stuff.
I would concur with that. I don't know how I feel about instant build as opposed to NPCs coming in and building for you. I think there should be NPCs that come in and build for you.
And part of the resources is paying them or something like that.
Yeah, pretty much. Either that or you yourself taking part in the process. I mean, some people really enjoy that.
I wonder if
I
we
don't
could
know.
look at this like Lego sets, to where the blueprint may have instructions on what brick goes where, and if you want to build it yourself, you could. Place brick E42-A here in this orientation.
I don't know if I want to get that detailed.
But yeah, it could
Just
be
thought.
where you sort of, when you're building the house, you put like a wooden framework up, and then fill the panels in with either bricks and windows, or bricks and doors and such like that. So you can actually see yourself building. So you actually place a framework, and then as you're putting the bits of wood in for the framework, you can then see it build up. So over a week, when you're building this house, you can actually see the frame going up, and as you would do in real life. Then the walls start coming up, the roof goes on, and then inside you lay the floor down, put the stairs in, everything like that. So I think it'll be good if you can actually see it being built. I think there's sort of more sort of satisfaction to see something being built and finished that way than it would if it's like I'll throw a panel up and throw another panel up and sort of job done type thing.
I wonder how complex this would be for the programming side. I worry about that a little bit because we're talking about really detailed stuff, and I just wonder if it ups the complexity so much that it makes it. I mean, I know that actually maybe I should just drop that whole thing, because really in this brainstorming thing, I don't care what it takes. I just want to tell them what I want to have, and then they figure out how to do it. And if it actually requires a lot of resources, then maybe it's just not available at launch.
Maybe just have the expensive house, because the simple ones should be easily to build. And people are not probably gonna have the expensive ones but a few months into the game.
It's possible.
But it could be that, I mean, the cheap ones could be literally throw a frame up with 4 bits of wood, and then get 4 planks of wood, and that's your panel done. And then you move on to the next panel. You can have 8 panels to make a building, or even 4 panels to make a building. And that could be literally done probably in an hour or 2 hours of farming and building.
So all of a sudden you have a shanty.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a wooden hut, and then later on, when you start doing brickwork, windows, and all the sort of intricate items that you want on the house, that's when it takes you maybe a month to build your house.
Right. And I actually would like that. I would take and put in the corner, I just put a little shack where I can put a little chest or something like that, where I can start storing some stuff. And then in the rest of my property, I'll start building my house. And just like character development, I love character development. I love working on my character. And so this could really be a sense of accomplishment of building my house as well and figuring it out. And I'm sure that I'd probably build it up and then go, I think I can do better at this now, and tear it down and build it again.
Yeah.
So.
Or sell it off and buy a new plot.
Yeah. Chat room. Chat's asking what game this is, and it's Atavism. And it's an engine that has never been seen before on the market. It's brand new. This will be the first game showing it. And if I understand the technology right, it should be able to do this. So, yeah. Okay.
Have we had a definitive answer on whether terraforming is going to be in or out of the game? Because I would really like to see terraforming in the game.
Well, but terraforming of just your own land or of the whole world?
World, really. Because, I mean, terraforming a side of a mountain, or even a plot of land out the back behind your house to make a mine and things like that, as I'm thinking. Or even to produce a lake. But, yeah, world terraforming, really.
I worry about vandalism and about people not caring and people just strip mining for resources. And, I mean, look at what happens to Minecraft servers, when, they allow, 60 people to play at once or whatever. And within a matter of days, somebody has a big neon sign saying, suck it. And stuff like that, and they build things out of the land mass and everything that was never really intended. And it's fine in Minecraft. It's not fine in our game.
Here's the thing, though. I mean, we're talking about a world that's possibly so big that you're never going to run out of land. And I mean, the vandalism question is definitely a legitimate question. That is definitely something that they'll have to balance out. I kind of err on the side of being free to do whatever you want to do, but on the same token, I also believe that you should be able to have a way to defend your property, whether it be through your pet dragon that you treat very well, or minions, or something like that, or maybe traps. Especially if you're somebody who's living out in the middle of nowhere, putting up traps around your property. Somebody walks into a trap and gets killed. All of a sudden you come out, your trap's full of person and loot. And
yeah. The chat room, one of the guys, Zen Triker, he says, newbie spawn village, now a giant crater filled with lava. And
there's
so
got to
awesome.
be restrictions of which areas you can actually dig down. Like if you're close to someone's plot of land that they've bought, you can't say within 5 units of distance. You can't dig anywhere nearby. Same with newbie towns. There can be huge areas in newbie area where you can't do any digging. It's just not allowed.
The local constable does not take well to it.
Yeah, I mean the system I'm thinking of is in Worm Online, where they've got huge amounts of land, and apart from a couple of places where there has been a bit of griefing because they've dug areas where people can't sort of get up on it and can't sort of jump up. Generally, the whole land is, if you've got an area that you've bought, you can just dig whatever you want. People have been digging huge holes, building mountains, but there's so much land that it doesn't affect anyone else.
But then we don't really know what the size of the maps is going to be in this game.
I think that I've been told something about that, but I can't remember. And yeah, I don't think that we should have expectations that it's going to be so huge that you can't walk from one end to the other in the lifetime of your character. But
I was hoping for that.
Well, but see, here's the problem. If we and I suppose if this is what everybody wants, my thoughts don't matter. But I fear. Okay, let's take the size of the Earth. And how long would it take you to walk around the world? It would take you at least a couple of years and a couple of boat trips.
I was going to say, unless you can walk on water.
Right. Well, no, a couple of boat trips. And, so should the world be that big? Well, if we have 1 million people playing the game and such, sure, why not? It'd be really interesting to see how, continents that are separated from each other and that it takes, some really extreme travel to get from one continent to another, how they grow up and what the culture is at each one of these. I think it might be very much like the real world. And, if they haven't discovered, they've only discovered fire and flint tools and basic metals in one area, where another area, they're forging with aluminum and stuff, and that could be quite interesting. But, will we have enough people to have interaction with other people for those people that want it?
Well, that depends on how well they do with the game. I mean, if they can get that level of emotional attachment like Eve has, then you could end up with, tens of thousands of players on server at the same time and interacting. I mean, like your whole thing on Eve, the social aspect of it will become more important.
Yeah.
I think if people do want to have communities and have interaction with other people, then they will set up near other people.
This is true, but at the same time, I want to go out adventuring. And, if it took me, gosh, I'm just trying to think of some size comparisons. Like in Ultima Online, you could walk across the map in about 3 hours. In World of Warcraft, how long would it take you? I mean, given that you have the fortitude to not get killed by creatures that you're walking by, You
Is
know,
it just going to be walking, or can I use my mount?
Yeah,
Well-
that dramatically changes the size of the world.
uh, I don't know. You know, and do we? I mean, you know, I suppose there could be magic that could transport us to other continents. You know, and once they've been discovered with boats or whatever, and then you know the mages on both continents set up a pact
Portals.
together, portals or whatever, and they say, "Ooh, we're going to make a lot of money charging people to do this."
Well, we already know there's going to be portals. So
Yes.
what you're going to be having is leaps and bounds. I mean, you figure out how to access a portal to another island of land,
Mm-hmm.
and you might be on the other side of the world already.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't. You don't have a physical representation of that. Like I don't know if they, there's something map wise they could do, like say that you can only figure out where on the map you are based on like the stars at night, like triangulation.
Mm-hmm.
So you can at least get a general, this is the height and the length, and this is approximately where it's at. I mean, it'll take a while of figuring these things out, especially if the players are starting from starter zones. It'll take them a while to figure out the entirety of the world, and that gives the developer time to develop the world, and and add stuff, because it's not going to be an instant, oh, we're going to start walking and we'll be on the other side of the map in 3 years. It's going to be, there's going to be fits and starts of people exploring.
What about some unique properties, like maybe a continent that's lawless, that while there might be greater risk, but it also allows for terraforming and of public areas and stuff like that, whereas other places have a little bit more legal influence and keeps you from doing that. Then the people who want to live in these regions where they could step out their doorstep and find that somebody has built a pit to Earth's core, and have to deal with those kinds of issues. Oh, now I have to figure out how to build a bridge, could choose to live there. And actually, NeoJack guys, if you're listening, which I'm sure you are we going so far out on a limb that you think that we can even do something like this? Message me. So,
I think they should be able to. I mean, it's it goes back to it's one thing to have legal rights to a land, it's another to be able to control it. And if we're in a newbie zone or a starter zone where it's controlled by an NPC lord, I mean, the NPC lord can say, well, you can't take the land down any further than X number of feet. Like you can build a basement, but you're not allowed to dig for mineral rights. You want to be able to do mineral rights, you have to go out into the surrounding forest or up to the hillside at the base of the mountain to do that.
What happens when everything is dug out? Isn't that what happens in Minecraft? Well, you look for new land, but what But then does this old land become stale and useless?
Not
I
necessarily.
actually thought about natural forces trying to replenish it.
Well, like a volcano springs up.
Well, maybe not the volcano, but the
be careful
cave
not to
just
dig all the
falls
way.
in.
Be careful not to dig all the way down, because you might hit, lava, and if you do, then a cinder cone could form and start spewing lava everywhere, and build it back up again.
Well, this would definitely teach the players not to dig that deep.
That'd be funny as hell.
I mean, there's one way around this where, when you're actually sort of doing mining and such and digging down, each sort of unit of area that you're digging down to takes sort of 100-200 hits to actually get through it, to then to move on to the next one. So to actually sort of say everything's going to be dug up will be a near impossibility, because it's going to take so long to get through each unit of area. So therefore, yeah, it takes a long time. So I mean, it might take someone 2 months to dig a decent sized mine. So if you've got that much land, it's near impossible to actually start digging the hole out. In Minecraft, yeah, it's a couple of hits and you got through a square. I think if you do it that way, then at least it's sort of a lot slower progression, digging mines and say digging up the earth completely.
We got to be careful of boredom as well. If it takes me an hour to remove a block that in Minecraft would take me 3 swings, I'm probably going to get bored of that pretty quickly.
Yeah, but it also depends on what that block provides you. If that block provides you 1 unit that's enough to make a sword, yeah, that's going to get boring real quick. But if 1 block is like enough to produce 20 swords, or a suit of armor, or a couple suits of armor, I mean, that's a whole different category of production there. And all of a sudden that hour of mining is worth it. There's a substantial reward for putting in that effort.
Right.
Because this all does come back to the emotional attachment of the players. So,
Right.
I mean, there will be people who just hire NPCs to do the mining. And we discussed the whole possibility of NPCs and their value and availability. But, all of this affects that. I mean, people who are adventuring will be finding weapons in dungeons and armor and maybe even like loose resources. Like there was a mine and you have a mine cart full of iron ores that's been sitting there for 200 years. Then you're no longer mining the materials, you're just gathering up what was there. I mean, this is a possibility. The possibilities are infinite in that regard, and it gives people incentive to explore and to find new things.
Yeah.
Then they walk into my dungeon and die.
And you get the loot.
And I get the loot.
Yeah.
Pay my goblins and move forward, because that's fun.
There's a lot of people showing up here who are looking for infestation. I apologize, I had the wrong title on the live stream whenever I started this broadcast, and it's been updated. That was last hour, and so next week, another roundtable. I just really like the creativity of that I'm seeing with this method. And I myself would probably choose to live in a badland where things could be attacked and everything. Although, we need to make sure that our house is not undermined, that somebody doesn't dig a cavern like Ink says, and then you find that your house has caved in because your neighbor went crazy mining. There needs to be some way of controlling that. Like maybe I can only dig down so far next to my neighbor's land until there's such a slope, that as I go in further and further, that there's such a slope that it won't cave in. It won't allow me to cave in my other guy's stuff. And if I dig all the way over to his property, it'll just tell me that I don't have rights. I'm going to need a permit or something.
Well, there's also the possibility that his house caves in on you and you die, and then all of a sudden you've wasted a whole bunch of time mining, and you're not going to be able to get to your resources again because it's been caved in. You got to remine that whole area and put in supports to get to your next vein of whatever. I mean, that in and of itself is a mitigating factor, because if you collapse in a cavern that you put a month worth of time in because you weren't paying attention, then,
but the negative effect on your neighbor, though.
Well,
I think
and you're stealing his resources.
Well,
if I'm paying for that land, if I own that land, I want to be able to mine it myself.
I'd say if you buy a piece of land, you own everything above ground and below ground. So no one can start mining underneath your piece of land.
And I want to build a fantastic dungeon underneath my land.
Oh yeah,
So-
me too. Yeah, definitely.
Well, then the miner enters into your dungeon the hard way and finds out that, there's a nest of baby orcs there and he gets eaten.
Yeah, but then, oh goodness, I'm just.
I mean, this is a possibility. I like the infinite possibilities. Now, the other thing is, if we're in an outlaw land where there isn't really any law, then ownership of a property like that would be rather difficult unless you had some sort of mechanism to control it. So you might already have your dungeon being built and somebody's mining and they accidentally mine into your dungeon. And, your current set of minions decide they're going to kill him for it. I mean, that's pretty big incentive to stop mining in your direction.
Yeah, I suppose that I could protect my property with my orcs that I've enticed into my dungeon. Because they would be hostile to him, and I wonder if they would be hostile to me. Have we discussed? Well,
Depends on how well you pay them.
Goodness, I'm gonna have to pay my orcs.
Maybe not.
Goodness.
pay,
Even if
just
they're
feed them.
even if they're being paid in halflings, that's still a pretty substantive payment. I mean, even orcs need a place to live.
Just offer them the land of the neighbor that just broke into your dungeon.
Oh yes, you get to take over his house too.
Wow.
Suddenly you have a neighbor orc.
All of a sudden, we're going directions I never even fathomed. But that's the beauty of this, figuring these things out. I don't know. I just want to. I want to figure. I would love to figure out a way to make this work, and I haven't gotten a message back from NeoJack about this. Maybe they're just being quiet about it, or they're not
Maybe
sure.
it's already in and they don't want anybody to know.
Well, we won't know what all is in until the Kickstarter,
Yeah.
we're well. I won't announce when it's happening until like the day before, and that's just because now it's a matter of timing. When is the right time? Because like right now is Gamescom, and they don't want to kick it off during Gamescom. So.
We actually had a similar discussion about land and the rights you can own on them or do whatever with them, like terraforming, on one of the after shows. Why not just have it set up as in continents? The starting continent has very limited, but it has decent resources, so you can get to the second continent. The second continent is going to be having less rules on what you can do. You can do a lot more with the resources, with the land, but it's going to be a lot more hostile. So you need team play and some sort of a guild, because you're going to be overrun by the NPCs. They're going to tear down your stuff, and it's going to be look like 2 months ago, before you even came. So the NPCs will be also terraforming, but reversing it back before you came.
Oh, I suppose there could be that a group of fairies will come in and plant new trees or something like that.
Maybe some elf, and
Elf.
for the ground, you can have earth elementals.
Oh, how interesting! What an interesting concept. I was worried about how he'd put that dirt back, and an earth elemental. If every time he battles you, he throws throwing dirt at you or something like that, and it starts piling up and filling things up
I think
again.
it's dirt.
You think it's dirt?
Earthquakes. Earthquakes re-terraforming areas.
The aspartame of the elemental world.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, maybe the further down you dig, the more you destroy, then the more hostile the creatures may get.
Possible.
It's just like in we talked about dungeons having levels and everything, and the further down you go, maybe the bigger the creatures and the harder it gets. And maybe the same thing would apply to open lands and everything. That mountaintops are going to have very high level flying creatures, and the down at the depths are going to have high level gargoyles or whatever kind of creatures live typically under the ground and stuff.
Well, we can also put in a mechanic to make some creatures more territorial than others.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're in an area that's controlled by a dragon, an old dragon to boot, then, there's going to be fewer large creatures around because it needs large creatures to eat. However, there'll be small creatures around. Those Vorpal bunnies will be rather vicious. But the dragon's not going to mess around trying to eat a bunny when it can eat a cow.
Yeah. Cows are bigger than humans, so we don't have to worry about it as long as there's cows around for food. Although maybe humans are a little bit more crunchy and tasty.
It depends if they're wearing full steel plate.
Yeah.
But the point of the matter is the creatures, sometimes areas will get abandoned because a larger creature has moved in. I mean, that could be a possibility. It also takes and gives it a fluidity that most games don't have. Like, you always know there's going to be a creature in a specific place, but if something bigger comes in and displaces it, then you really have to,
I really like this idea that if we could terraform and everything in regards to affecting our environment, and we do things like chop down trees and all we leave are stumps, or we even dig out the stumps because we want that wood as well, and then we have wood elves or whatever that woods elves maybe that come through in groups, and they are protectors of the earth, and they don't like people harvesting, and so they might be they might attack you if you're out there chopping down trees and they happen to be coming through. But if they're not, then then they're planting saplings, which in a few days are big trees again, and it renews the resource for us, and such.
I'd like it where you actually could farm seeds off the trees before you chop it down to then replant yourself. So you can actually plant a forest in your back garden, so you have a good supply of wood right behind your house.
But just as a consequence for all those that chop down the trees, once elves come, they're gonna kill everyone close by as a revenge, so you're not waiting there happily if elves come and plant trees. There's some killing going.
That may be, but on land that you own, you're free to do with it what you want. That maybe the maybe the elves respect property rights, but they see themselves as protectors of the land and everything. It could be quite interesting.
It could be working both ways, where if you do start planting trees to replenish, then they're happy with your sort of ecosystem.
Oh,
where you're actually sort of returning more trees than you chop down. So as long as you sort of keep doing that, then you don't get worried with them. But if you start clearing forests out completely, then you could start getting a few visits.
So in Eve, there's different alignments and factions and everything, and certain areas you perform certain acts. You go down in rank and or you go up in rank. It's almost like a karma system, and it really could be that just the fact of planting trees brings you up in stature with the wood elves. As opposed to, if you just continually chop down trees and never replant, then, your stat goes down, or your standings with them go down, and your more of a target for them. They're a lot more hostile towards you.
Yeah, so if you want to clear like a huge area, massive area for say farming, you can just literally got to go sort of further down the valley or whatever, replant a forest down there, so you've got good karma. So when you do take down this huge area of trees for your own use of farming, you've actually sort of leveled out your, as you say, karma. So you can sort of transpose the trees further down somewhere else.
And I wonder, I wonder, if like this karma system could be used with dragons, orcs, other animals, that they acknowledge your good deeds and or
Probably
your
not
bad
the
deeds.
dragons or orcs. Those should be feared in power.
Well, you don't think I can get so high in status with dragons that I could start taming them? That they would be willing to work for me?
Not if you plant trees.
Yeah. Well, and maybe you have to choose. Maybe dragons are mortal enemies of elves just by the nature of it, just by how the environment works. For whatever reason, dragons breathe fire on trees and burn them down, and so the elves hate them. And dragons think, oh, I can get to the tasty snacks of elves now because there's no tree cover and I can fly down and get them. And so you're either one or the other. You can't. You might be able to be middle standings on both, but you can't be high level on both.
No, that's true.
Look at where this has turned. What this has turned into. We talked about forming land, and now we're talking about social, which I think is pretty cool. Really, this has developed. Where we're at right now is we've developed a way to justify being able to make all of the land possibly malleable in one form or another. And how it gets replenished, how people who abuse the land get treated, and how the planet or the realm or whatever corrects it, how it's self-correcting. Maybe that's the way it is in real life too. I don't know. At least a little bit. Either that, or we'll have the Tree Hugger clan. And they'll come out and vandalize our log homes, telling us to leave their trees alone. So, okay, well, we've hit an interesting spot here. So I think that if we can introduce a system like this, I think it would be wonderful. And I want to know whether or not it's possible. If it's possible, then I think that there's a lot more that could be done in this area, because this all has to do with crafting and with relationships and with the economics, all of it. It's like our resource that everything is based off of.
Yeah, it needs to be a good balance, because you don't sort of you don't want to sort of clear out all the trees and then sort of be stuck with nothing left, or say strip mining. That's certainly needs to be sort of kept an eye on.
Yeah, and you know what? Other players, so if one person is lumberjacking and strip mining and whatever, and another person wants to build their standing in their in the Wood Elf faction, then they would go through and plant trees, and they would do that for the status. And, gosh, that might work out really good. Yeah. Any other thoughts, guys?
You get bonuses for chopping trees down, so you get extra wood if you've got a good faction status.
Oh yeah, but then the higher your efficiency, the more risk you have. So maybe you might work in tandem with somebody else that's really high level with the wood elves, and that would be replanting them right away. And if you work in tandem, then maybe both of your skills go up, and you can both get really good at it. And so your skills go up. So maybe your standings don't. Maybe your standing is different from your skill level, but your. I don't know. It's all so complex.
Or you could spend standing on raising your skill. So
Yeah.
you can. It gets a bit complicated then.
Yeah. I want to try and keep things as simple as possible, but I want to have things as unlimited as possible at the same time. And I know that those conflict a bit, but I don't want to lock us into something that we're going to regret a year from now. And so, the goal is to keep everything as open as possible. So I don't know. Okay. Well, I think that we've kind of reached the end of that topic, and really we're about at the end of the episode. So, any final words, guys?
Not really. I think that if this system can be implemented with the vortexes, I think it would be a good addition.
Voxels.
Voxels. Excuse me.
Yeah.
It's
Don't worry,
just renaming
I
it
had
now.
to write it down so I remember it. Yeah. So, okay. So I think I think this would be pretty amazing, and we'll have to see whether or not they can do something like this, and maybe like Ink's idea of that the initial kingdom that everybody is in. It has a really a high level of security and safety and rules and regulations. But then the further out you get, it gets a bit less lawless, and you can start doing other things. But then there's creatures that may say different. But if you can evade those creatures, you may have a lot more options of the things that you can do, the things that you can create, and the tasks that you can perform. So, sounds good to me. Yeah. Okay. So, okay, that's it for today. Next week, same time, same place, same channel. And we shall have another subject. I'll talk to the NeoJack guys and see what they want to talk about next week, and I'll see whether or not I can. They're willing to clue me in on whether or not this would be possible. Because I think we could go a lot deeper into this topic as well. No pun intended on digging things up.
Any
So,
chance of getting one of them on here so we can talk to them directly?
well, I have actually not allowed them to come on, and that's
Oh.
my choice. And the reason is that we have not allowed them to come on because I don't want to have them influence our brainstorming. I don't want to talk about this stuff and then poo-poo the idea right at the beginning saying we can't do voxels. I would rather have this entire episode talking about the wonderful things we can do with voxels and the things that we can come up with and do that's really cool, and then them watch this episode and go, shit, we need to figure out how to get voxels working. That's
I concur.
That's the tact I want to take on this. And so once the Kickstarter launches, we will have developers on the show. But when it comes down to the brainstorming portions, I don't know whether or not they're ever going to be on the show. That just all depends. As it stands currently, sometimes they send me messages during a live show and say, ooh, we like that. Or, whatever. But it's not every show. In fact, they haven't sent me anything today. So, maybe it just means they don't like it. I don't know. We'll find out.
You are voxel denied.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for attending. Come back next week, And as soon as the Kickstarter is going to happen, I will do a show and let everybody know and warm everybody up. And there's some really neat things about the Kickstarter. One is set your pennies aside, because the Kickstarter, of course, is going to be, asking for you to commit some money to it. It doesn't have to be a lot of money, but there's going to be a reason to get in on day one. So we do, if budgeting is something that concerns you, then start setting your few bucks aside for getting in on it early, because there's going to be an advantage to that. Okay, well, that's it. Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Cheers, Margaret.
See you later.
Bye.